All right, welcome to the first ever live episode of HeroFront, the podcast where we give veterans a voice, share their stories, and dive deep into the journeys that inspire us all. I'm your host, Josh White, and today we're talking to someone whose journey truly embodies resilience, reinvention, and service. Joining us today is Kelsey Danner. Kelsey served in the United States Navy from 2004 to 2014 as a damage controlman, specializing in CBRN, which is chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense. After an impressive career that ended with her medical retirement, Kelsey has continued her commitment to serve as a public affairs specialist for the Navy, bringing vital stories to light. Originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Kelsey now calls Kenosha home, where she lives with her husband and two bonus children. Her story is one of grit and growth, navigating a path shaped by her experiences as one of the first women in her family to serve in the military and finding her purpose after transitioning to civilian life. So, in today's conversation, we'll be diving into medically retiring, where Kelsey will share her perspective on what it really means to be medically retired from the military and how it is often misunderstood. We'll talk about coming to terms with diagnosis and the challenges of letting go of a dream to serve for life. We'll also explore her experience transitioning out of the military, including what she felt prepared for, what caught her by surprise, and how she navigated her way through job hopping, from being a barista to a preschool teacher to ultimately finding her passion in public affairs. Finally, we'll close with her insights on leadership, her experience as a woman in uniform, and the unique challenges and triumphs that come with being a female veteran. Kelsey is an open book, and I know that her story will resonate with so many of you listeners. So whether you're a veteran, currently serving, or just someone who loves to hear stories of perseverance and purpose, this episode is for you. Kelsey, welcome to the first ever live HeroFront podcast episode.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I hope you like that intro. I make it sound super fancy, right? You
I,
can just take that soundbite and just use it anywhere.
I'm impressed with myself. I was like, man, I want to know more about it. Like, this is good.
That means I nailed it. Yes. Okay. All right, Kelsey. So I told you there's the Hero's Gauntlet. You're on HeroFront. HeroFront is all about, finding that inner hero that we all have and bringing it to the front lines of your life. See what I did there? That play on words? I'm proud of that. And so the Hero's Gauntlet, you got to earn your way to the conversation, okay? You got to earn your way to your story. And so the first question that I have for you, it's going to be an easy one, and hopefully a funny one. But what's a crazy, funny, or very memorable basic training story?
Um, so my last name before I got married was Gum with two M's, and my mom sent like 15 pounds of gummy bears in boot camp. Sent it to me so I could share with everybody. And like 6 or 7 years after boot camp, I was in San Diego, and all of a sudden I heard this voice that was so scary but familiar, and it was one of my old RDCs, and he just screamed "gummy bear" across like the yard of this like building. And when I froze and I felt like I was in E1 again, like sweating, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to do 8 counts or push-ups or something. Like, it was terrifying. But to this day, like, people that I run into that I served with, they still call me Gummy Bear. So it's kind of crazy.
There could be worse
Yeah,
names.
for sure. For sure.
I like Gummy Bear. It's memorable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm guessing the person you heard was what in the Air Force we would call an MTI, a military training instructor. Is that what I'm understanding? The people who yell at you the whole
Recruit
time?
drill commanders are what we call them. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yes. Anytime you run into them, it's straight up PTSD. Like it's, I'll tell you, for me, one of my favorite things I ever got to do is I did military funeral honors for 2 years. And with that position, we get to put those same clickers on our boots that those TIs have, the people that yell at you in basic training. You know how you could always hear them coming with the clicks of their shoes. I'm not sure
No,
if
we didn't.
they did it in your branch of
No,
service.
they just came in with trash
Oh,
cans, big metal trash cans, and started banging them.
well,
Yeah.
shoot, that'll do it. Yeah, and the Air Force, they have these metal devices like shaped kind of in a horseshoe on the bottom of their heels. Um, and you could always hear them coming, that click, click, click. It's a very distinct sound that we will haunt our dreams forever. But I got to wear those for 2 years, and I kind of felt like a badass at the BX.
A little impossible.
I'd be at like the shop.
Like, I am so, so cool now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be at the shop, and then every so often I would slip because they're a little slippery, and then all the coolness would just disappear from my body.
Just keeps you humble. Keeps you right
It
at.
did. Yeah, God would just humble me. He'd be like, "Nope."
Yeah.
All right, you're doing great so far. Let's roll into the second Heroes Gauntlet question. And that is, what do most people get wrong about being a female veteran?
The fact that they exist. Can I say that?
Yeah, I was drinking there. The fact that they exist?
Um, no, because like people automatically assume that my husband was the one who served. Like when they see the disabled vet license plate, or when my husband will ask if there's a military discount or something somewhere, they automatically assume he's the one. They're like, "Oh, thank you, sir, for your service," and I'm like, "What the
So
what?"
you're telling me your husband gets more thank yous than you when you're the veteran?
1,000%. And he just laughs. He looks at me like, and then he's just like,
He's just living that veteran life. He's like, man,
yeah,
this is nice. Like,
yeah.
I'm getting treated nice. People thanking me for my service. He's like, man, I love this
Yeah.
life. Thank you.
So female veterans do exist, especially like at the VA. I think that's the worst. I don't go to the VA anymore because I had a lot of really bad experiences there. But when I used to go, like the guys would be like, "Oh, are you waiting for your husband?" No, no,
Oh
dude.
my
I'm
God.
here for me. Thank you, though.
Jesus. Well, I'm sorry you're going through that. That your husband's getting all the glory
Yeah.
from your service. But no, that was a great answer. I almost spit my water out, but yeah, that was a great answer. Okay. Third question. If you could go back to the day that you finished basic training, right? You're about to probably go to tech training, your whole life's ahead of you. What is one piece of advice that you would give yourself? And would you actually listen to it?
So I was freshly 18 when I graduated boot camp. Like I turned 18 in boot camp. So I would probably tell myself, don't ever make a career decision based on a man.
Is there a story you want to share
Yeah, but
behind that?
I can't put too much out because that would probably be like defamation or something to somebody else. But
Yeah, as long as you stay away from names, and
I think
it's been a hot minute, you're
yeah,
fine.
I think it's like, so you're young and everybody has like that, like a school love or tech school love or whatever. And for me, like it was once I got out to the fleet and I was on a ship and I was like, oh, I love this boy, whatever. And I thought I was gonna follow him until I found out he had a girlfriend. And so
And were you
like
girl number one or girl number two in this
eh,
situation?
the side chick, unfortunately.
Oh no. Damn. Dang it.
But I think a lot of people do that early in their military
Mhm.
career. Like very rarely do those A school loves end up being your forever, right? And
Right.
so I think,
Let's be honest, the people that do make that the forever, they're kind of weird.
I
Like
mean,
they're kind of
it's special. That's for sure. I
they're always like really bizarre couples. They've got little quirks about them, and it's like they can talk to each other like telepathically. Like they're always interesting people who can pull that
for
off.
sure. And like I feel like if I would have just followed my career, I would have been in a different place. I mean, I'm happy where I ended up, but it was a lot more struggle than it was worth if I would have just done it the right way.
Just focused on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those distractions can really throw you off your potential.
Boys in uniform.
I mean, I went through tech school, right, for 6 months. It was super long, compared to the others.
Mhm.
And, I went from Maryland, which statistically has like 5 times more females, to an environment where there's like one female for every 20 guys. So of course every guy is like going through the struggle of like not getting that
Yeah.
attention anymore. And
Yeah.
so once that finally happens, no matter who it's from,
Yeah.
right? Like you're in love.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's your soulmate. After tech school, that was such a miserable dating experience for
It
me
was
that
wild.
after tech school, I swore I would never date another military woman again. I would just keep them as friends. I don't have nothing against them. I love who they are as a person, but dating, I just said, there's just too much going on with that.
Yeah.
And
It gets
I stuck to that. I never did again after tech school, not once.
well, good for you. I can't say the same. Um, but but then in that respect, like being a female who was in the military, it is so hard to find a civilian who gets your mindset.
Hmm.
Like I I feel like I'm a pretty like intimidating, strong-willed person, and you can't just like be with anybody in that situation because I prefer to like be independent and I don't need a man to like change my tire. Is it nice? Yeah, sure, but I can do it. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
you got the right person, and unfortunately you just kind of fall in the trap of military guys because that's easier.
Right. They are right there.
Yeah.
Um, it's like your pick of MREs, you
Yeah.
can,
But
there's all sorts of flavors right
always
there.
pick the chili mac.
I love the chili. Yes, thank you. I like chili mac. That is my favorite one. Finally, my God. Yeah, that chili, that should have been my call sign. Chili mac. That's a cool ass name too. Uh, Chili Mac. All right. So I got you did great. You did all three questions. Okay, you're killing the game. But I do have a bonus question for you. It's a little more sentimental. Okay, a little more from the heart.
Okay.
And that question is, what's one moment from your military career that still gives you that sense of pride, that sense of purpose every time you think about it or you tell that story?
I would say my last deployment, we were one of the first ships to respond to the earthquake and tsunami that hit Japan in
Mm,
2000. And because I had been stationed in Japan previous to that, I had like a special affinity to the country and the people and the culture and all of that. And so while that was probably the hardest part of the deployment, I think like I really have a lot of pride in what we did. So they had shipped out a bunch of relief aid kind of stuff that we flew into the country. But when we ran out of aid from the government, everybody on the ship donated stuff that they had, food, clothes, whatever it was. And then we shipped all our stuff to help these people who lost everything. So I think that truly is like my moment that I will
yeah.
I'm proud
Yeah,
of.
you basically, there's people who, lost their lives, lost their livelihoods, their
Mhm.
homes, they're separated from families, right? Like that was a tremendous disaster. I too lived in Japan. I lived in Okinawa for two
Oh,
years.
nice.
And yeah, I learned all about the language, had tons of Japanese friends. I've since lost touch with them because this was back in like the MySpace days. So,
Don't age.
they weren't really on.
Don't age.
Hey, I just turned 40. There's no escaping it. I mean, my God. I wake up in the morning, my freaking back hurts. I got gray hair. I don't think I can age myself because it's all right. It's all right here.
All right. All right.
Uh, but yeah, I wasn't able to stay in touch with them. So when that tsunami hit and all those disasters hit, it happened multiple
Yeah.
times, sadly. Yeah, I was definitely worried about them. But I know how strong they
Mhm.
are,
Oh,
as a
yeah.
nation, their culture. And I don't think many countries could have bounced back the way that they did.
100.
Um, yeah, like there's really no keeping them down. They will find a way to
Mhm.
figure it out. That's just how they're
Yeah.
wired. So great ally to have, great country. It's like living in a freaking
Yeah.
anime. Like what more could you ask for? It's like, bro, I'm in Demon Slayer, bro. Like what? Like there's Goku up there. Dragon Ball Dragon right there. Like,
Yeah.
I got a bowl of ramen
Yeah.
here. You're in an anime, dude. That's the coolest thing ever. That's how I explain it to people, and they're like, I'm going. That's it. That's all you got to tell them. That you're in a real life anime, and they will go.
I mean, that's pretty.
Okay. Yes. So, Kelsey, I gotta say, you're doing wonderful. All your answers were funny, heartfelt, etc. And now we're gonna start into the bulk of the conversation of the episode. But before we get into the topics, now here are the topics: medically retiring, transitioning out of the military, which your boy's doing that right now. Uh, leadership, good or bad, and then being a female veteran. And so, before we get into the first topic of your medical retiring journey, I would like to hear, what inspired you to join the Navy? How did that all start?
So I joined in 2004. I joined because of September 11th, purely for patriotic reasons. I also did not want to go to college. I was not much of a school person. It just wasn't fun to me, and I just wanted to like do something that would get me money. My grandpa on both sides of my family, both of them served. My grandpa on my mom's side served in the Navy, and my grandpa on my dad's side served in the Army and Coast Guard for 35 years. So I had a lot of influence from them. They would tell us stories, old sea stories and stuff, which I have now realized were lies. It was just like them trying to sound cool, which good on them, like their
Yeah.
glory is great.
Well,
But
that's still happening to this day, so that's not uncommon. It's all over the news.
yeah. So I joined purely for patriotic reasons.
Yes, and you know what? I did the same. Um, I'll never forget 9/11. I was in 11th grade at that time, and the first tower dropped, and I thought, or the first tower was hit, and I thought, that was an accident. Like, no one would do that on purpose. I think most people thought that. And then, the second one was hit, then the Pentagon was hit. My dad was working at the Pentagon. He was a GS employee, or like a contractor, like a DoD contractor. Um, I was in a school right outside of DC, so that shit was in our
Yeah.
backyard. It felt personal. And then seeing, I think it's burned in our brains that people jumping from the buildings, right?
I mean,
That's got to be the worst, one of the worst images that we could have,
how
as
dramatic.
kids seen.
Like I look back on that now and I'm like, what were the teachers thinking? Like allowing us to watch that?
Yeah, they all rolled out that damn TV
Yeah.
cart, bro. They propped their feet up and was like, that was on purpose. And you're just like,
And I'm
yeah, looking
like
back,
watching,
we're like, that shit was traumatic as hell.
yeah.
Man, seeing people jump out of buildings, and it's just, but it did fuel us, right? It fueled us. It fueled us to join. We wanted to join the fight. We were fired up. And I gotta say, as what year did you end up getting medically retired?
2014.
14. Okay. So I'm just now retiring, and there's people that were born before 9/11 that are in the military. So like the culture, me and you, the drive we had is gone
It's
today. I'm kind of a historian. I'm 40, but I'm like, oh, we're back in my day. Listen up, kids. Just sit down, sit on down. Uh, yeah, somehow I'm 40 years old. I'm a damn historian, but it is odd to me that 9/11 was such a powerful reason for all of us were there. Even in basic training, they're bringing it up. In tech school, they're bringing it up. And then to be in a military now where they weren't even alive when it happened. It's really just yeah, that happened. Okay.
yeah.
And it's like if I told you you should be fired up because of Pearl Harbor. You
Yeah.
know, you'd be like, well, I get it, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was a long time ago. So I don't, so I don't blame them for that. But it is different. I gotta say, it is different. I do miss that fired up, like, let's just kick their ass, like
Yeah.
mentality. That's kind of
Or
drifted away. Yeah. Yeah, that was such a fun time to be in, to be like, yeah, F yeah, we're gonna F the shit you know, and then like not even feel bad about all the threats you're throwing out, it just guilt free, just throwing, just getting fired up.
Yeah.
That was a good time to be in. A lot of people were doing some amazing
Hmm.
things. Okay, so we got why you joined. Love it. We got that in common. Um, but unfortunately, you were medically retired. I know that was not what you wanted.
Hmm.
You sent me a video where you kind of explained the medical scare that you have, which is pretty insane.
Yeah.
And so I was hoping you could run me through, what you explained on that video that you sent me.
Sure. So, throughout my military career, after like PT or doing something strenuous, or I was like a firefighter essentially. So, like, we were doing a flight deck firefighting drill, and I would pass out. And every time I would, finally wake up, the ambulance would take me to the ER. The ER docs would tell me I'm dehydrated, exhausted. I drank too much caffeine. I was smoking too many cigarettes, whatever. Right. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. You're the doctor. You're the boss, like,
So they gave you Motrin and told you you're dehydrated?
yeah, for sure.
Classic.
Yeah, it was really, really great. And then, when I was working, I was an instructor on the boot camp base, my last tour. And I was working out during lunch because I used to be cool like that. And I was working out and I went down, passed out. When I finally came to, somebody had mentioned that I looked gray. And I couldn't feel my arms and legs. And when I went to the ER, the physician assistant was like, you know what? We're just going to do like a cardiology consult to be safe. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I was probably dehydrated because that's what I had been told. Fast forward 6 weeks, I'm at the cardiologist office. I get an echo done, which is like an ultrasound of your heart. And he tells me to go to his office.
Never
And I'm like,
good.
no. And so I'm there with my mom because she lived close. And so she came with. And I looked at my mom and I said, this is like in the movies where they play the sad music and tell you you're dying. And we laughed about it. Because I was like, this is wild, right? And the doctor came in. He was a lieutenant commander. Came in and he said, Petty Officer Gum, I don't know how to tell you this, but your career in the Navy is over.
He started with that?
Yeah.
God damn.
He didn't even like, hey, so I was like, okay. And I just remember repeating, like, I'm so grateful my mom was there because she listened, but I just kept saying, holy shit. Like, because I couldn't believe it. And they told me I had a really rare heart condition, only 0.5% of the worldwide population has. And that the left side of my heart was like a sponge. So it wasn't beating correctly. The part that's supposed to push the blood out to your body was essentially like squeezing a sponge and it was just coming out. It wasn't going how it was supposed to.
How are you alive?
By God's grace.
Yeah, because a heart, I mean, I had a heart virus and I almost lost my life too. It's a whole story I could tell you sometime, but so I've kind of been in your shoes where you get that news. And it's such a fragile organ, right? Like if the beat is off, if the valves are off, like if any of that's off, it could just stop.
Yeah. So I had gone into cardiac arrest that day. And what saved my life was how hard I hit the ground when I was working out in the gym. And that jolted my heart out of the fatal rhythm. So
My God.
that was crazy. So then I got a defibrillator implanted, so that if it happened again, it would shock me. So then I got medicated through that process. And for the most part was like pretty stable, until 2021 when I went into cardiac arrest again. Thankfully, my doctor shocked me. My heart was going 330 beats per minute before it stopped. And then it shocked me and I came back after I face planted on a Zoom call for work. It was really great during COVID time. So
like, Kelsey?
Yeah, literally.
Kelsey,
like,
are you there?
All I could hear when I woke up was, where did Kelsey go? Where is she?
She's dehydrated or something. I don't know.
cameras were on, everything. And then finally, when the paramedics showed up, because my husband was home and he called 911, when the paramedics showed up, I was like, can somebody close my computer? So, like, the people in the meeting could not see what was happening, or because
Okay, that's
it was
good.
wild. It was wild. So,
Because if they would have, someone would have posted that on YouTube or something,
for,
you know what I mean? You'd have been all over the
for
internet.
sure.
Um, so yeah, hopefully this isn't, is it, if not too direct of a
Oh,
question, but could you run me through what, having was it a heart attack essentially?
cardiac
Okay,
arrest. So,
cardiac arrest. Could you run me through like what that means and what that felt
sure.
like?
So, everybody kind of experienced cardiac arrest differently. So, like with a heart attack, that's a plumbing issue. So, like your arteries get blocked, you get the left arm pain, nausea, you're sweating, whatever. Cardiac arrest, your heart beats so fast and then just stops. And so for me, I was sitting in the chair and I was like, man, I'm really tired, but my heart feels like it's literally about to explode. And that's the last thing I remember.
So
And
you're
then,
like, why am I so physically tired when my heart is beating like I'm
yeah,
sprinting?
and
And then you blacked out
I
at that point.
blacked out. I fell out of my desk chair. And when I woke up, I knew I had been shocked because I didn't feel right. And my face was bleeding because I hit something on my desk when I went down. So,
How do how do you ensure that that doesn't keep happening? Because that's got to be on your mind a
yeah, I
lot.
mean, it's definitely a mental health thing. Like, um, I'm always extra cautious. And I'm always like, I'm highly medicated on heart meds and stuff like that. But for me, when I say things like I'm living every moment for what I have, it's because it literally could be taken away at any second. So,
So it has changed the way you look at your time on Earth.
yes, 100%. I
Do
take,
you think it's made you appreciate it more? Do you look at things, situations differently? Does it
uh,
make you choose things for yourself differently?
I have like little patience for bullshit. That's probably a veteran thing too, but like when people are like, "Oh, I stubbed my toe," I'm like, "Well, at least you didn't die. You're fine." Like I that sounds awful when I say it out loud, but it's really like I'm I I am so incredibly grateful for this extra time I've been given that I want to make sure that I'm appreciating it to its max capacity.
And how do you do that?
Um, I I just live my life. Like I tell my husband, I'm like, let's go to Ireland for spring break. So we took the kids to Ireland because I'm like, I want to experience this stuff with them while I
Hmm.
can. And
Yeah.
um, I tried skiing in the mountains of Colorado. That was unsuccessful. I 10 out of 10 do not recommend.
Now
That's
you lost me at
yeah,
skiing. No.
that's my
If,
husband's
if
favorite.
people can run into trees and die, count
Yeah.
me out.
No, it's not fun. You can't breathe. You're too high up. You got to wear all these things. It's heavy. I like to eat, so I'm not as athletic as I used to be. It's all a thing. Um but I really just enjoy the moment, right? Like when you're like, "Oh, I could either go to whatever place and travel, or I could just sit at home and like watch TV." I'm gonna travel. I'm gonna go see what I can, do what I can, experience what I can, because time is short, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think more of us need to adopt that. The problem with perspective is if you don't go through it yourself, it's hard to adopt someone else's perspective. Like I just made a video on why it took me 20 years to get my bachelor's degree because I just got it. So it took me 20 years.
it took me about
I'm like,
a long time, so don't worry. You're in good company.
but yeah, for me it was it's just because I didn't look at time the way I should have, right?
Mm.
Like I thought I was busy as a single airman playing Halo and drinking. Like why the fuck did I think I was busy? Like am I insane? But now I got the podcast, I got full-time job, I got my two kids, and I'm doing more with my life now because I have that perspective. So, I think it's important to share that perspective
Hmm.
in the hopes that it does the change the way someone is using their
Yeah.
time, right? Because you don't want someone to find out the hard way why you
Yeah.
should appreciate your time. So, thank you for sharing that. Um, was it, you know, emotionally painful to leave the military that way? Did that go against the current plan that you had set for yourself?
Yeah, so like 2 weeks before I was diagnosed, I had decided I was going to do 20, and I was going to make a career of it, and I was really excited to see where I was going to go next, and I wanted all those things. And then it was like, not only did I have to come to terms with this diagnosis, but now I have 6 months to figure out how I am going to survive, literally. Like, and 6 months was generous, right? Because they don't tell you how long your med board's going to take. Mine was very cut and dry. There's no questions asked. Like, I am a liability to the military at this point. So I knew inevitably I was done. And so I only knew the military for my adult life. Like, I wasn't one of those people who joined at like 25 and had like a life before that and knew
Hmm.
how like adulting worked. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't even know what adulting was until I got out of the military. Because to me, like, the lifestyle of the military was a lifestyle. It wasn't
Hmm.
like going to a job from, 7 in the morning till whatever time in the evening. It was a lifestyle. You lived, eat, and breathe it. And so trying to figure that out was awful.
Yeah. You know, I guess looking back now, I mean, there's other people that this is happening to every day, for various reasons. I almost got medically, I went through a board a few times, probably three times.
Hmm.
One for when I shattered my heel bone, and that could get you removed because you could never run again. Luckily, I was able to get past that. The heart virus,
Hmm.
they're like, "Hey, you almost died. Should you be here?" So went through it then, and then here recently, I have testosterone injections. Believe it or not, that can get you kicked out.
Oh, who knew?
Yeah, and it wasn't the testosterone, it's the needles that you need to take with you. That's where you could
Like,
get kicked out.
no, that was, I shouldn't have said that.
Wait, you blocked out. What
Oh,
did you say?
so because you look like a crackhead. And then I said, oh, that's me.
Essentially, yeah, you do when you try to go to freaking, United Arab Emirates and they're like, bro, like, what are you doing? What is this? Like, you're going to jail
Yeah.
now. So yeah, you can't deploy with it because it would just freak certain countries
Yeah.
out. They would immediately think you're sneaking drugs.
Yeah.
I deployed to Israel and I did take it with me, and nothing happened. But luckily, Israel, they're very similar to
Yeah.
us, and so it worked out, and I didn't get arrested, thankfully. But yeah, those are the times I almost got medically separated or retired. So for the folks that are going through that now, you know what it feels like, the anxiety, the wanting answers but not getting them, and then ultimately having to start your life over. Would you have advice for those folks if they were to tune into this episode, looking for that information?
I would 100%. I am a huge mental health advocate. And anytime somebody is experiencing something in life, going through something in life, trying to figure something out, I preach therapy, counseling, figure out your resources on base, whatever the case may be, because I didn't get my head right before I got out. And so it took me probably 2.5 years before I started seeking out mental health help because I thought it was just about physical health. And I
Mm,
didn't realize that the reason why my physical health was degrading so quickly was because my mental health was garbage. And so when people start, like, I have a friend who he just got open heart surgery. Like, he's in the military, just went through open heart surgery. He's like 20 something. He's a baby, right? And I'm like, dude, you
mm,
sign up with therapy. Like, I don't care about your physical therapy. I care about this. Like, get your head right. Because when you're young and you experience a life altering event like that, you will never ever be the same. So I always, when people are talking about they're getting medically retired, I'm like, I understand the money thing is important and the job and this and that, but get your head right. Because at the end of the day, if your head's not right, it's going to make it 100 times worse.
How bad were you in the mental health space during that point? I mean, how bad are we talking here?
I mean, I wasn't gonna kill myself, and I say that very openly, like it wasn't there, but I definitely didn't feel like I had a whole lot of worth, and I didn't have anything to offer, right? Because when you're in the military, you hold this position that offers you, you offer a lot, you save the day, you do all these things, you're really cool, and then you get out and you're just like, now what, right? And like
Yeah.
I really struggled with like self-worth. Um, I had a hard time finding people to connect with because I felt like nobody understood me. And it actually, I got hooked up with Wounded Warrior Project, which I know they have a bad rep from a long time ago, but I got hooked up with them in 2018, and that saved my life because I was
Really?
found a veteran community who understood the unfairness of medical retirement or medical discharge or things like that, because everybody's got some kind of, we joke and say we're the broken toys club. But like we all had to get out because something was wrong. So I no longer had
Right.
to explain how cool I was when I was in. Now it was about showing people that I could still do cool things like as a normal person, and they afforded me that opportunity. So
How did they make you feel so welcomed? Was it just lending an ear? Was it just hanging around them and sharing stories?
yeah,
What did that look like that healed you?
I think it was, well, one, the community, right? So you're around like-minded individuals. You don't have to really explain yourself. People get it. You can make like the weird veteran jokes, and like nobody's like, oh my gosh, she said death. Like they're just like, ah, yeah, cool, whatever. um and so like it was very comforting in that aspect. But I did what's called soldier ride. So they like, you go on this bike ride like a trillion miles. It's not really, it's like 25 miles the first day, and they fit you for this bike and you do it all together, but you do it as a group. So it's like, like those group runs that everybody hates, but at the end of it, you're like, yeah, that was freaking great. Ah, even though I'm dying, like I feel so super motivated. That's what it was like. And then you do 2 more days of it after that. And they
Oh,
go slow, right? They only go as fast as their fastest cyclist, who many are using the hand bikes and the recumbent bikes and like don't have legs and all these things. And I'm like, man, my situation is pretty legit. If these people can do it, I can do it. And so I
yeah.
found um, acceptance within that, and I found my inner fight after that. So I think that's really what it was.
You found your inner fight.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like you started fighting for yourself.
Hmm.
Sometimes we just need that kick in the ass, that perspective,
Hmm.
that connection, something to kind of like rekindle that flame that was put out.
Yeah.
There's still something in there. It just needs a little help, getting lit
Hmm.
again. Wow, that's beautiful. Now, and as someone who's retiring, I've my dad served. I'm fourth generation
Hmm.
airman. My dad did 26 years. I've been doing 20 years, 6 months. Um, yeah, it is hard to, show up in civilian clothes. Now, don't get me wrong, my civilian clothes game is fire. Okay. But I'm not one of them anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm not them. I'm the other guy.
Yeah.
Right? I remember being an airman and be like, "Oh, who's this civilian briefing us?" Like, okay, whatever, dude. Like, that's me now, dude.
Yeah.
And I know that. But I'm gonna get to be a resiliency coach at Eglin. I'm going
Okay.
to, yeah, I just got my suicide prevention certifications this last 2 days. And I could tell you with suicide prevention and with veterans, really where it's missed the most statistically is just not asking enough good questions, not, you know, listening long enough to truly understand how bad off they really are. That
Yeah.
we're all putting out signals for help, whether we realize it or not.
Hmm.
We're either saying things or not saying something that should raise red flags in
Yeah.
people. And then we need to have the courage to ask, are you feeling suicidal?
Mhm.
Just to flat out ask those words and use those words. Like we avoid tough discussions. We're kind of
You
worried what the person's going to
you
say.
literally have to be like, are you going to kill yourself? Do you have a plan?
Yeah, you do.
Because if you don't say that, they're not going to answer.
Right. Exactly. That's the step that it's missed the most that I've learned out of these past 2 days. So just wanted to share that with you. Okay, so we're on the topic of transitioning out of the military. For me, it has been hard. I don't feel like I'm one of the cool kids anymore.
You're not,
There's a
just like,
certain grit and
I'm
purpose.
just going to keep you humble. You're not cool anymore.
I'm not cool anymore. God damn it.
In case
I knew it.
it's like, that's it. Like, you get that DD and it's like instant loser. Cool.
You're like, does this say you suck or is that
Yeah.
just what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
Uh, so I went through all the VA stuff. Some of that was hard. Let me tell you, there is some of my VA stuff that went on
Yeah.
all day long. And then I was reminded of all like the chemical exposures I've had. I'm like, shit, what's that gonna do? I was exposed to toxic water. I'm like, fuck, what's that gonna do? You're like, they go back and just remind you, you did this, you did that, you hurt this, you hurt that. You're just like, oh my God,
I remember.
that is a
I
lot.
remember when I was doing like the PTSD portion of the VA claim, and like, veterans or military people, we like laugh through everything because it makes us so uncomfortable. And so they were like, how did it feel to like go into cardiac arrest? And I was like, well, at least I'm still here. And she was like, well, you sound very healthy. And I was like,
Like that's
eh,
not what I'm actually dying. Can you put that I'm
yeah.
dying instead of damn it? I hope they did pay you, by the way, through the VA. My God.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, you got that figured out.
Solid.
Okay, good. Good. See, I went through the mental health one too, and yeah, I laid it all out. My buddies told me, don't hold back.
I know
Do
now I
not hold back.
like don't laugh. Fake cry if you have to, because like even if you're like, I don't cry, like you better cry. Just for like 5 minutes. Just so like they can
Yeah,
be real.
yeah. I wasn't crying I was more of a dead inside because I truly felt that way. I was dreading it. I didn't
Yeah.
want to have to tell someone everything start to finish. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sucks. And they're not there to help you, right? It's not like a
No.
therapy
They're
session where
there to be like,
it's like,
you do have problems.
right. They're like, holy shit, man, you should see someone. I'm like, that's not what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Like, no. Um, but yeah, it was hard. It was tough. So, you've been through the whole VA process. Do you have any feedback for someone like me or other people who are going through it, who are unsure what to expect, who are not sure what to say? What was your experience like?
I think like the most important thing is to be like straightforward. Don't minimize your injuries or your experiences. I think as military people, we have a tendency to minimize certain things because of the traumatic effect it has on us. And so I think for me, like when I went for my heart, right, I have a defibrillator in my chest, and the doctor literally was like, do you still have that? And in my head, I was like, no, I dropped it off. Like, what? What? Like, but just to be very, like,
Yeah.
oh, you feel? Yes. And it hurt. And I couldn't walk for however many months. And it still hurts when it rains and snows. And my whole life sucks because I can't put my foot in a shoe or whatever the case may be. Like, you have to be straightforward with them, because if you're like, I mean, it's all right, I make do with it, whatever, they're going to be like, oh, you're fine.
Yeah. That's the what I was warned the most about, and that's what I want people to not do.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine told me that this is the best piece of advice. He said, if you go to the VA, explain it as if it was on its worst
Yeah.
day. Right? Right? That's the not its best day.
No.
Because I'll tell you why we lie and say it's fine. Because you've been doing that
Yeah.
your whole career.
Yeah.
Right? The last thing you want to do is go to the doctor and be like, "Oh yeah, I get headaches," and you just fear they're going to be like, "Oh, well, you get them 5 days a week. Well, then you're getting kicked out. See you later." You know, you're not sure what's going to get you removed
Yeah.
medically, right? So you just and you hear horror stories, right? Like, "Oh man, I just barely said anything. I went through this board, and now I'm getting kicked out." And you're
Yeah.
like, "What?"
Oh.
So you're so used to sugarcoating it
Hmm.
and not being honest to where I recommend people really review their medical records too, because you have lied to yourself for so long. You don't, I personally didn't even remember the shit they brought up.
Yeah.
I didn't even remember. I had pushed it out of my brain so I would never admit to that the
Yeah.
pain was there.
Yeah. That's fair. Very valid.
Yeah. So luckily I talked to folks like you. I talked to really good friends of mine that just went through it. And so I knew how thorough I needed to be,
Hmm.
how honest I needed to be. And yeah, they were watching
Yeah.
me. Right? Like the hearing person would kind of say something like really low, like and quiet. And then when I was like, "What are you
Yeah.
saying?" And she's like, "Okay, okay, I was just testing
Yeah.
you." I'm like,
Just seeing, and you're
"You
like,
were
that's
testing me." She was seeing if I could hear her low
yeah.
speaking voice. Another instance where they tested me was I said I have frequent urination from just God knows what chemical did that. Who knows? But I have frequent urination. It started when I was like 25, so it's been there for a while. And she would be like, "It's been 15 minutes. You do you need to use the restroom?" Like, shoot, that was a test.
Yeah.
That was a test. I had just told her every 15 to 20 minutes I have to use the restroom. And now she's asking, "Do you need to go? It's been 15, 20 minutes." So I was like, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if I said, "No, I'm good," and I just continued
Yeah.
for hours and hours,
Then you're fine.
that response would have been switched to "he's
Yeah.
fine," and it would have just went
Yeah.
bye bye, and it would have never seen the light of day again.
Yeah.
But luckily I was like, "Oh shit." I actually did have to pee though, so I was being very hydrated. So
But I,
um, the mental health one surprised me because of how quick it was. He was
yeah.
like, "Okay, explain this." I want to say it was 15 minutes long.
Hmm.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
And I've been told by other people that it was very quick. Was it quick for you?
Yeah. I mean, really, probably like 10, 15 minutes. And I walked out and I was like, what just happened? What just
Right.
happened? And then, like, as awful as it sounds, my next thought was, this is why veterans kill themselves.
Oh shit.
Like, because I'm sound and in sound enough mind or whatever, however you want to say it, where like if I'm really struggling, I'm gonna like call my therapist and be like, we need an extra session, right? Because I have no shame in that, but I am of the minority in that thought process, right? Most people
Mm.
who are going through something and start spiraling, they spiral until they can't anymore, and that's it. Whereas I'm like, can we like increase the meds? Can we like, I have no shame in it. But other people do find a really severe sense of shame. And so I think being like pushed through that quick process in the VA almost makes you second guess if your feelings that you're having are valid.
Right. So you're saying it was almost offensive to what you
Yeah.
went through by the way they went about it.
Hmm.
What could they have done differently to make you not feel that way?
I think like, well, first of all, I think the girl who like questioned me was probably like 12. She was like fresh out of school, probably never experienced a bad day in her life, was going specifically off textbook, like these are the signs of depression, these are the signs of anxiety, whatever. Like,
Like basically Chat GPT could have did
yeah,
what she did.
yeah, essentially. And so I think you have to like the VA is so niche with their clientele. I almost feel like all providers at the VA should be veterans.
Oh, I thought they were. They're not.
No.
Well, I haven't been. I haven't been to the hospital. I've only been through the contractors to give me my percentage. I've never actually stepped foot in a VA hospital.
So my first experience with VA mental health, right? Because I was like, I'm gonna go to the VA because it's all free and like whatever. Was some guy. I was in his office for 20 minutes. He said that I didn't have enough mental health issues, so he would see me in 6 weeks.
Oh, damn.
And I was like,
That's like what not to
yeah.
say, right? Like
And I was,
that's kind of
I
brutal.
don't think I'm coming back. So like there, because the VA doesn't pay well. And so it's all these fresh, brand new baby therapists coming up, like trying to learn how to do their job.
Mhm.
And it's not, I mean, are there good ones? Yes. I won't say that but in my experience and things I have experienced, it has been
Mhm.
positive through the VA.
Have you ever went back, or did you change doctors and you never went back
All
since?
now, I refuse to go to the VA.
And when was the last time you went?
The last time I went to the VA for like an actual appointment was probably 2018.
Oh wow, so it has been a hot minute then.
Mm-hmm.
Time is flying. I say 2018. I'm like, oh, that was last year. I'm
No,
like, shit. Wait a minute.
time ago. Yeah, I just don't. It creates too much anxiety in my life to have to
Yeah,
prove my service, prove who I am, prove what I did, and prove that what I have is real. Why am I going to spend all that time doing that when I can go to a civilian doctor and when I tell them I was in the military for 10 years and X, Y, and Z is wrong with me, they're like, well, that makes sense.
yeah. Um, you hit on an important thing I've heard many times, and that's proving why you're there, why you need help,
Yeah.
and that's an abnormal environment to be in.
Mm.
Before we move on to leadership, do you have any more advice or stories you'd like to tell about the topic of transitioning out of the
I think
military?
just get connected. Whether you find a group of veterans in like a Legion post or something like that, or Wounded Warrior Project, or Team Rubicon is a really cool one, like for people who want to help. They go into all these places like the LA fires. They'll go in and help clean up some of that. Get involved with a group that has veterans in it because
Hmm.
what your service was matters, and being around people who understand that, even if it gives you just a little boost, like it reminds you that you're still a badass.
I love that. And as a podcaster, as someone who's big on mental health, that connection,
Mm-hmm.
having people understand you, people that you can trust,
Mm-hmm.
um, it makes a world's difference.
Yeah.
And I've been one to isolate, and I know how painful that is. And so I'm right there with you. The community,
Mm-hmm.
the veteran community is bigger than the active duty community
Yeah.
that's currently
Mm-hmm.
serving, right? That's a small, right? The veteran is like everyone who's still alive that served at one point. That's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can find a good group, I'm trying to do that now. A lot of my, friends that I've met on base as a civilian are retirees or they served. And so I really gravitate towards them, and it's made a world's difference with my own personal transition, having them in
Yeah.
my life. So I am right there with you. Um, Leadership, the very broad term, leadership.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on good leadership, on bad leadership, on the 10 years or so that you served. What are some of the lessons that you learned, and what are some of the lessons that you have applied to your life today?
I think like the most important one is to be humble. So in my career, I started as one job. I got out for 8 months, 8, 9 months, came back in the military. Poor choices. It's fine. And then came back in as a completely different job, but the same rank. So I came back into the Navy as an E5, but a brand new job as damage controlman. And I knew nothing. And damage controlman is a job that you have to start like as a baby sailor and work your way through, because that's where you gain your experience and your knowledge and all those things. Mm. And I showed up to a ship as an E5, expected to lead all these like firemen and third classes. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I literally looked at the E3 and I said, you have to help me. You have to teach me, because I don't know what I'm doing. And I cannot vouch for you and I cannot fight for you if I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes. I've been right there with you too. I've been in the same position.
It was
I've had 3 career fields out of my 20 years. And the hardest transition out of all that by far was when I was maintenance and I went to medical.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's big, especially for the Air Force. I worked civilian side for the Air Guard for a while. So, but that's a big.
Yeah. So I went from like this crazy, inappropriate culture of all sorts of fucked up stuff they would say and do, and the way they argue is different. Mm-hmm. They're confrontational versus gossipy.
Yeah.
Very much like very like alpha male type, right? And then in the med group, it's much more like, hello. It's much more like
so real.
It's like,
that's so.
I'm gonna ruin your career, and I'm not even, and you're not even gonna know what's happening.
Yeah.
So they're much more. Don't get me wrong. I like the environment. It has the utmost professional airmen.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the most professional airmen we have because they are doing patient care. They're very talented, extremely talented. But I walked into a situation where like I never won awards before. And then I went to the tech school and I won all the awards. Like I want to get out of maintenance that bad, right? So I fucking killed it. And they're so competitive in the med group that when I came there as an award winner, I immediately was like being withheld information, right? Like I immediately, that was the most painful 4 years of my career, because not only did I not know shit, but I had to rely on people lower ranked than me who saw me as a career threat. Yeah. So it was like, where do I even begin? Like I was like banging my head on the wall. I mean, it was just so frustrating. But I have to say, I learned a lot, right? Like, even when you go through those really tough bases, you still learn a lot about leadership, about what to do, what not to do. I hope I never see those people again, because I was just so embarrassed by me falling on my face over and over again. Everyone that sees me today is like, bro, you're killing it. And I'm like, well, hopefully I don't run into those folks, because goddamn, they would have a different story for you.
Yeah, for real. For real.
But it's just one of those bases where I just made every mistake in the book. I just didn't know how to navigate those tough conversations, those tough situations. I just didn't. I've never had to talk through those things. The good news is, after that base, everything was just kind of easy.
Yeah.
Like nothing can surprise me.
Yeah.
Who I trusted and who I didn't looked much different. Mm-hmm. A lot of people just couldn't get to me like they used to. Yeah. And I stopped focusing on myself, because it put me in a competitive mindset too, where I was like, I'm going to beat everybody. I got to be the top rank everything and win everything. Like, it turned me into something I'm not. Mm-hmm. And that was just a painful existence, trying to be someone you're not. Yeah. And so when I finally embraced who I really am, and I focused on helping other people on those following assignments, and I stopped making it about me at all, I made a lot more friends. I was a lot happier. And it got me through to the 20 years, right? Because had I not learned those lessons, ain't no way in hell I could have made it to 20 years.
Well, and
so
I think too, like, so I work at a tech school base as a public affairs person. So I talk with everybody all the time, up in everybody's business. And I constantly am telling like the higher ranking people, like, if we want our junior sailors to have more pride in their uniform and have more pride in what they're doing, we have to dig down deep and find that pride back in us. Like, we have to bring it back, because you can't expect them to be excited and to be proud if you're just like, welcome back. Today we're going to do this. Like, you got to fire them up. You got to light that, you got to just find it within you. And I think the people who are really pushing for that, like, okay, like, let's get them motivated. Let's do this. Like, I have more respect for leaders like that than the people who are, just complaining because they don't like where they're stationed or what they're doing or things like that.
Yes, and you made a good point there. The leaders set the pace, they set the tone, they set the culture, right? They show you what's acceptable, what the standard is, and what's not acceptable. They're being watched by all these, their
Yeah.
students, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So especially they're being watched. My God, I mean, they're there to watch you, to learn from you, to understand the culture of the Navy. So if you came in there real low energy and you don't care, why do I want to stay in? Because I don't want to turn out like
Yeah.
you. You know what I mean? We have to be the person that they strive to be. We're living the life that they hope to have one day, right? And so it's very important to connect those dots to like the E5s,
Yeah.
who are on the front line. The E5s are like the backbone of our Air Force. They're like the staff
Yeah.
sergeant, the first line supervisor, and that those supervisors are what's going to make or break those airmen's career. It could be a 4-year career or it could be a 20-year career, and it's all based on the experience those sailors are having with those E5s, those E6s.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think good on you for sharing that perspective. Keep driving that home. Don't let them forget. Don't let off, because it is crucially important for if they stay in or not.
Yeah.
I knew a senior master sergeant, Misty Marino. She ended up retiring before she made chief. She was she was like the most competitive, the most intimidating female airman you could ever meet, right? And she did not stay until chief. She ended up retiring to save her marriage, her family,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because she put so much into her career. It really started neglecting some other things in her life. But the story that I'll never forget she told me was she thought all the airmen just were in awe of her, right? So when she had like a sit down with them, come to find out they all wanted to get out because of her,
Yeah.
right? They're like, man, but all due respect, like, we don't want your life.
Yeah.
We don't want to be here till 8 o'clock at night for what?
Yeah.
We don't want that. And so that was her aha moment when she realized she's actually setting the total wrong example by going way too above and beyond and neglecting everything else in her life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're watched more than we realize sometimes, I think. So, you have the awareness of that. You've been there, you've done that. Uh, and so for you to pass that on to these young leaders, I think is pretty invaluable.
Mm-hmm. It's I mean, I love it. I love my job. It keeps me connected to the community. I love telling people stories. I used to have a podcast back in the day during COVID when everybody had
What?
um and I just love it. I love to tell people stories. I love to hear people's stories. Because I think everybody has something in their story that can
Mhm.
benefit.
Where did that come from in you, your desire to see the story in people's and understand that that could inspire other people? Like, where does that stem from?
I don't know. I think I've always just been intrigued by why people are the way they are. And I think they are the way they are because of something or some things that they've been through. So I think learning about that, and I ask a lot of like really personal questions of people all the time and like blame it on being public affairs. I'm like, oh, tell me your story because I'm public affairs. Like, but I'm really just intrigued by people. I find people to be fast,
Yeah,
especially like
yeah.
people, like when I'm like, gosh, you're so weird. Why are you that way? Like, I just want to know, not in a mean way. Like, I'm just like fascinated.
Yeah, you're like, how did that happen? Like, I do the same thing with people who are all professional in uniform, and then they're like dressed as like some punk rocker in their civilian
But they're
ones with like chains and like nose.
furry on their like that's fascinating to me.
No, that is fascinating. The furry thing, I don't know if I want to know those answers, if I'm being
No,
honest.
no, we can we'll just take that offline. That's fine.
But no, I'm the same way. I'm like, why are you the way
Yeah.
you are? But no, I'm a storyteller and I capture stories. Clearly I care about it too.
Hmm.
And I've been asked a lot that question, and I've narrowed it down to, for one, I'm trying to provide the info to the version of myself who was desperately seeking
Yeah.
leadership advice. I was isolated, I was alone, I was searching the internet for conversations like this. So that's one reason. The other reason was my job on the flight line. I'd be in a truck because I used to tow the equipment back and
Hmm.
forth. And sometimes you'd be on a flight line for like 12 hours with someone else in that truck. And I don't care if that was someone you hated. By the end of that 12 hours, you knew their whole damn life story.
Yeah.
And it made us go from hating each other to friends. And I was like, that's
Hmm.
interesting. Like just one work shift stuck together, sharing stories somehow made us closer. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I never forgot that. And it's something that I've carried with me to this day.
Yeah. I think
And I got to spend the last 6 months as public affairs as my internship. So I did get a glimpse into your world, and it's amazing job to have.
it is. And I love to be creative. I'm definitely a creative, like crafty, like to like use that side of my brain. And so photography and videography and stuff, like I am not amazing by any means, but I'm definitely learning and seeing my growth. Like that's something that I'm really proud of too, because it's pushing you out of your comfort zone, but also you're able to like bring in what you love and do what you love. So I don't know. It's cool. I
It
love,
is cool.
and I think people don't realize how valuable they are. And so
Mm.
I by encouraging them to tell their story or asking them meaningful questions, I think it helps people realize their value.
Yeah, you can kind of see it happen in real time. It's a beautiful thing when they've accepted who they are, they
Yeah.
own their story, and it's all from certain questions you knew to ask.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's what I'm doing to you right now.
Yeah. This, this was a
All right.
great, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, you're still on the clock. I'm $200 an hour. No, before we go to the last topic here, I do want to ask one more leadership question to you, and that is, did at any point in your time of service, did you learn what not to do? Did someone show you when you had that leader, you're like, man, you know what? I'm going to take that with me on. I don't ever want to be like that person. And if you ever did that, what are some of the things you try to avoid? What did you go through that you look back at as a what not to do?
So I had a leader who everything was very, very personal to him. And there was some like love connections, not including me, but like other people, but we all worked together, and that connection didn't work out. And because I was friends with that other person, he made my life miserable. And he made everybody else's life miserable because he just was an unhappy person. And that really killed the morale of our division and like what we stood for and what we were. And I vowed to myself I would never be that person. Like I would always recognize that some people have certain strengths, others don't. And he just wanted to make everybody mad, angry, sad, whatever the case may be, but it was never positive. And so I try to like close out every day. I have one student that works with me, and every day, I try to close it out with what was something good that happened today, and just
I
end it
love that.
on a positive note, because the last thing you want to do is leave work and be like, wow, that day sucked. And does it
Yeah.
happen all the time? No, like there are days we leave and we're like, that was a tough day. But for the most part, like I think I've learned that as a leader, you have a much bigger impact on the people you're leading than you might realize. And so to be mindful of that, because
Yeah.
their livelihood is in your hands.
It's a big
Yeah.
responsibility. Sometimes, they don't realize how big that responsibility is, right? Until something goes south. And hopefully talking with people like you, with your experience, they never get to that point. You're kind of reminding them. You're kind of like a coach. Although your public affairs, it sounds like you're still very much a positive voice in the background of all
I try.
this. So
I
I think
try in my
that's great that you do that.
college every once in a while. I'll be like, "Have you thought about doing this?" And they're like, "Oh, I like that." And I'm like, "Cool, cool."
Well, hey, that was a great discussion on leadership. We're gonna go to our last topic here. It's getting kind of late. You've been crushing it, but I don't want to keep you up too late. And the reason I have to do this because my kids are crazy like me, and they stay up and they're loud and they love life. But I am not gonna get
It,
any work
it's
done or talk.
so I'm just letting you know that. I was like, I told my husband 9 o'clock, and he was like, "Are you sure you can stay up that late?" I was like, "Look, I'll try just once."
Well, I appreciate you working with my odd schedule. Okay, so the last topic here, something you're very proud of, that is being a female veteran. And I believe that you're one of the first women in your family to serve. And so I'd love to know, what you learned about breaking barriers and how it shaped you to advocate for yourself and other women today.
So when I joined, I feel like I joined in a time where you were a sailor. You weren't male or female, you were a sailor, right? And there wasn't a lot of differentiating. As time has passed, I think there is a lot more differentiating between like male and female, or um, you know, just whatever you identify as. And so in my time as a female veteran, I have learned that not everybody who served had the opportunity to serve with females, which seems silly when you think about like there is a pretty large female population in the military at this point, but there are some jobs, or even on a ship, right? I was on a ship that had a crew of like 350, and there were 35 females. So
Oh, wow, yeah, that's barely any.
so there's some shops or some divisions on a ship that have no females in them just because. And so I think people forget like females served, right? And so whenever somebody's like, "Oh, your husband served," and I'm like, "No, that's me." Or when I'm like arguing with the VA and they're like, "Can I get your husband's social?" And I'm like, "Why? What do you need that for?" Like, and they're like, "Well, he's your sponsor, right?" And I'm like, "No." Like, what are you talking about? Like, and I think it's just like educating people, right? And if you catch me on a good day, I'm very kind to educate. But if you catch me on the wrong day, I'm just gonna let you know you're dumb. Like, I just can't. It's hard because like I'm not a broad burning feminist, right? I'm not like, "Oh, lady power and all the things." Like, I believe in being a strong female. I believe in being independent. I don't rely on men for anything. It's just who I am. It's how I was raised. And so I think when I tell people I served, like they think I was a secretary. And I was like, "No, I was a firefighter." And they're like, "Wow." I'm like, "Yeah, it's crazy." Or like my best friend, she was in the army and she was out doing wild things. And I'm like,
Mhm.
"That's crazy to me." But like, they don't talk about it on the news, right? And so you're like,
Right.
is that really happening? So I think people just need to be mindful of that. Like, I was on the honor flight. I got to be a guardian on the honor flight, where they fly the veterans to DC to see all the um,
Oh, yeah,
monuments.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super dope. Super dope. I 10 out of 10 recommend. I think everybody should do it once. The guy that I escorted, I didn't know him prior to. When I told him, "Oh yeah, I used to be in the military," he was like, "No way." And I was
Jeez.
like, "Oh good, this is gonna be fun today." Like,
What a great start to the day.
like I just think people need to be a little more open-minded, right?
Yeah.
And not discount people because of whatever, right? Because I worked really hard when I was in, and I outworked some of the men that I worked with, right? And so
Mhm.
discount me because I'm a female. Like, I was lifting heavy things. I was, beating my body up to do things. I was, refueling helicopters on the flight deck. Like, I was doing cool stuff. So
Yeah.
it gets me on my soapbox.
No, it is important to share what you've done. And that you're right, the perception for people who haven't served and think women aren't in the military, or people who've even served and they're just never around them for their career or
Yeah.
situation. Um, because there's, we're struggling for bodies right now. We need help.
Hmm.
The numbers are at an all-time low. And the last thing you want to do is make someone who wanted to join feel like they can't now,
Yeah.
right? Because of someone's opinion that is false.
Yeah.
Uh, And so for you to share your story and to empower other women, it is super important because you're showing them what's possible,
Mm-hmm.
what they're capable of, and that they can make a difference and they should join and they should make a difference. So
Well, and
it is important.
there's like a bad stigma too, right? From like the early 80s, 90s when women were serving and like really awful things were happening to them. And I am not downplaying that by any means. I've worked in the sapper community. I was a victim advocate. I was a SARC. Like, bad things happen to women a lot in the military, but not as often as you think, right? And so for women who are afraid to join because something bad might happen to them, I want to encourage them, like, it's not always like that. And it doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that. And so I think it kind of got a bad rap for a long time.
Mhm.
Or like if you were female in the military, you were sleeping around and you were, whatever. Like, not every female is like that in the military. Some actually outperform the men, like, who just in life. And so I think it's a pretty fair playing field, right? When you talk
Mhm.
about, like, in the civilian world, there is some huge pay gaps for men and women, right? But in the military, we all get paid the same. Whatever rank you are, that's the pay you get.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter who you are, And so I think that's kind of cool.
It's come a long way, is what you're saying. And it's true. I mean, even when I joined in 2004, that's the basic training. That's the wild days of Air Force basic training. I say that, I mean, there's no oversight.
Yeah.
Relationships in every single flight,
Mm-hmm.
assaults through the roof. That's why
Mm-hmm.
my sisters didn't join after me. I had three, four younger sisters. Some wanted to join. They never did
Yeah.
because it was out of control. That was 2004, 2005, and they busted
Yeah.
everyone. One airman actually ended his life because he got life in prison for the number of assaults he actually had. It was
Yeah.
insane. There's no oversight, right? And who's vetting these people, right? They have a lot of responsibility with people who have no say, right?
Yeah.
They're in basic training. So the Air Force spent an insane amount of money
Yeah.
revamping that entire process, new facilities, new process, new everything. And then every person who is a TI who's in that job has been vetted like
Yeah.
crazy. Only the best of the best can do that job today.
Yeah.
Back then, it was anyone who volunteered. So
Yeah.
if you were like a crazy person and you just wanted to go power trip on some new airman, you could just put yourself in that
Yeah.
job. And now there's no way they let a lunatic
Yeah.
into that position. So it has come a long, long way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would hope no one would be afraid today of those problems that they had all those years ago. We have the SARC, the Victims Advocate. We've put in a lot of really good tools to make sure that doesn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, even my job, like a resiliency expert. I'm a prevention specialist. Like, these are new jobs.
Yeah.
This is a new position. There wasn't a person with me who was just concerned with your mental health for all the airmen on base, and that's all I do is take care of that.
Yeah.
And me and this whole other team of people get to do that every day. That job didn't exist that long
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that they're trying to make it better.
They're definitely trying very hard, especially now I'm becoming a civilian. I've seen what they fund. I've seen the positions they've created. I've been to the
Yeah.
meetings. They definitely care a lot, and they're trying very hard. to make the quality of life just through the roof for whoever, serves and is on the space.
Yeah, for sure. It's about
When I
time.
first joined, that was not
Yeah.
a factor.
Yeah, they cared about that.
They were also overmanned, right? So they really didn't care
Yeah.
back then. They were trying to get rid of
Yeah.
people. So that was a tough time to serve when your voice really just did not matter.
No.
And a lot of my trauma, a lot of my issues I carry with me were from that first 6 years in.
Mm-hmm.
Just how unforgiving it was.
Yeah. It was
Wild
West.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
it was crazy.
Wild West time to be in the military is fucking out of control.
Ooh.
But not today. So, hey, Kelsey, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying up late with me. HeroFront After Hours. This is the HeroFront first live I've ever done. I told you I've done a live before on someone else's podcast. She's called the Millennial Veteran.
Mm-hmm.
You should look her up.
Okay.
And I rambled like I was on cocaine.
There's those needles. I'm starting to get worried.
I was like, I'm lying. I was like, there's people watching. I just got like bug eye. I was just like talking. Like she literally was like, I asked 2 questions.
Well, you did really
She's
good.
like,
You did really good. I'll give
did I do better? You think I did good? I stayed calm. I paced myself well.
Yeah,
you think
you
so?
did great. You did great.
Okay. And you did too, Kelsey. You the way you shared your story, you're funny, you're sensitive, you care, and all that.
Can I record you saying I'm funny? Because there's people in this house where I live that would disagree with you. So I just am gonna go that you think I'm funny because
get that quote printed out in cursive and just put HeroFront Podcast and just put it in lights, above their bed. They can see it every single day. But no, you've done a lot. You've been through so much. You spent 10 years just crushing it, just being so appreciative of the work you're doing. You're so proud of yourself. And then for all that to be derailed, not only that, you had to transition with a health condition where you didn't know if you were going to live or die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a scary. I feel like a little bitch right now because, I'm like, am I getting paid enough though in my civilian job?
Probably not.
Like, do I have a big enough house? My complaints are nothing compared to what you went through, where you were so young and not only had to figure out your new life, but you had to figure out your health on top of all that. I mean, that is 2 major stressors that you had come at you at the exact same time. And the doctor had no bedside manner. It was like, well, what do you think about getting kicked out?
It's like,
That's happening. Like in a few weeks. You're like, what? Why?
Yeah.
I haven't even got to that yet.
Yeah. You're dying.
How much time you got?
Great.
And you're still serving to this day, right? You're a civilian. You're in PA, where the message is so important with social media today. My God, I tell people it's half the battle.
Yeah.
There's the reality, and then there's the perception, and they're 50-50. You could be the best base on earth, but if the perception is you suck, then you suck.
All
you have to.
Is one leaked video on one of those like meme sites.
Yeah. So I'll give our meme site a shout out. It's called Airman, like AMN NCO NCO Senior NCO. So AMN NCO SNCO. Look that up on Facebook. It is running the Air Force.
I've seen,
like it is. Such,
I was part of the Air Guard for a little while there, and the memes are plentiful.
Not just memes, people are sending them shit they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And they're like, how are you even getting this information? Like, it is out of control.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
Awful.
When we first joined, the only PA were PA. Now everyone's got a phone in their pocket. Now suddenly we're all PA. It's like,
It's
It just
awesome.
happened. It's so my hat's off to you. You're doing such an important job. You're still coaching airmen. You still obviously care so much, and you're a great voice in the veteran community for showing us, what success looks like post service. And me, you helped me tonight too. A lot of those questions weren't for everyone; they were for me selfishly.
Well,
And
good.
so,
And you can reach out anytime.
once you've been on Hero Front, you're a friend for life. So I might shoot you a text every so often. And Kelsey, I just want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Do you have any final thought, maybe a message for anyone out there still listening to the very end?
Um, it sounds like cliche and cheesy, but you matter, right? And what you've been through has happened and it's valid and it's okay to be struggling, but it's also okay to ask for help. So, um, even if that's asking a friend for help, if that's your first step, like at least you're making a step, right? Like it doesn't have to be a professional therapist, can be scary. I get all that, but like just ask somebody for help. Don't do it on your own.
That's beautiful. And I'm right there with you. Sometimes that first step, saying it out loud, makes it real, even to you, even to yourself. You're
Yeah.
like, damn, I, I knew I was bad, but I didn't know I was doing that bad. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's revealing of your own thoughts when you share it with another person. So well said, Kelsey. Thank you so much again. Thank you to everyone who watched. We had viewers in and out, pretty much the entire time. I've never done this live before. You're the first. You can say you're the first Hero Front live of all time. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening, Kelsey. I'm going to text you after we end the live, just to give you my final thoughts on it. But if you're still watching, thank you so much. This was the hero's journey of Kelsey Danner, and we're out. See you, Kelsey. Good night.
Yeah.